Hello and welcome to the oddschecker betting show. I am your host, George Elek, and I'm delighted to be joined by Andy Holding and Ed Quigley as we look ahead to Saturday's racing both at Newbury and at Warwick, especially the Denman Chase. We've got the Kingmaker as well. Loads of great racing over the course of the weekend I'll be chatting to the guys about. And then later in the show, we'll continue with our festival focus, with answering your questions posed to the guys. This time around, it's going to be finding out what their Trixie would be ahead of the festival at this stage. Not long to go now at all. Ed, that's your hashtag, your mantra. You are just around the corner. Getting excited?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, George. Yeah, I should have got my T-shirt ready, shouldn't I? My merch is in it's in the printing press at the moment with the hashtag
dress
not
code.
long now.
So you can wear it all week.
I do. It could be absolutely hashtag not long now. That's get the cap on and all the schnood, the lot. Yeah. No, looking forward to it. Say just over 4 weeks to go. The sun's been beating down. It's lovely at the moment. Yeah, as you say, it's all kind of bubbling under now. A lot of the protagonists have kind of rolled their dice already, haven't they? With the view to the festival, probably headed straight there now. But we're into that kind of silly season now where you just like me, you log on to Twitter with bated breath, waiting for the news breaking, and so is out at the festival, and just waiting with bated breath. It's not something you're sitting on a nice anti-post ticket with, but which is I think I told you that story before, haven't I? With the one when I was doing my Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve, I sat on Alpha Rov at 50s for the King George. I think he was into about 2-1 after winning the Paddy Power. I was looking at the vol-au-vents, and then got a text from Graham Rodway saying Alpha Rov's cropped and he's out for the season. So put them back and walked out the shop. So yeah, it's you do get that kind of silly season now when with those horses coming through as they're stepping up their preparation. But no, really looking forward to it. And as to say, but nonetheless, it's a very good weekend. This racing this weekend to be casting our eye on.
And Ed, you're off to Warwick on Saturday as well. First time to the track. If any viewers or listeners are going to be there too, should they come over and shake your hand or give you a wide berth?
Well, it depends. Yeah, I was just going to see how I play it on the day. No, I'm joking. Yeah, of course. Yeah, come over and have a chat. I'll be happy to sign autographs and God knows what. But yeah, no, indeed. I'm looking forward to it. Never been to Warwick. It's been one of those courses that's always escaped me. So just going there for pleasure. No work involved. Just looking forward to the afternoon. And obviously, a couple of the races on the card aren't betting heats much themselves. But with John Mon on the card, it'd just be lovely to see him glide round, win hard, how by 10 lengths, and then sets up that epic clash on day one of the festival with him and Al Fabiola going toe-to-toe. Obviously only a nick between them at entry over hurdles, and it'd be great to see something similar, wouldn't they, if they were both jumping the last together in the arc in 4 weeks' time. But yeah, off to Warwick, and very much looking forward to it.
Lovely stuff. And Andy, we're going to get to the viewers' questions in a second, but I saw this wasn't asked by anyone else, so I'm going to ask you myself. The theme of the Dublin Racing Festival was generally, hot pots, generally trained by Willie Mullins, not performing the way that we expected. Looking specifically at, of course, Vassal Vega, Lossiemouth, Blue Lord. Specifically with Vassal Vega, who we know that you were very keen on. Prices went out to kind of 6-1 for the Supreme in the minutes after the race. Now into 7-2 best price, which is not on a no bet. Given that he was lame on returning to Willie's yard, given that they obviously went a ridiculous pace early on, where do you sit now on clearly a proven performer who's bombed out last time out for obvious reasons?
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I'm not influenced one way or the other because of an anti-post bet. He was never the kind of price that allowed me to get involved, even though I thought he was the best horse in that category going into the weekend. So it's allowed me to become a little bit more open-minded. Sometimes you can get the blinkers on if you back something anti-post, and it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it, to make the excuses and say, oh yeah, this happened, that happened, and this is the reason he get beaten. He'll be a different horse next time out. But I think if I'm just looking at that now at face value, what happened the other day, despite all the things that you've said, he's a very, very difficult horse to back at sort of 7-2, 3-1, based on the theory that you want a horse in general terms going into a Supreme Novices off the back of a win. I think 26 of the last 28 winners of that race have all won last time out. So it's not a race that you want to be carrying any baggage going into. So I am still a fan, and I'm still not writing him off completely like some are. But now, like I say, I've got an opportunity, like everyone else has, to back him at 7-2 when he was evens last week. But there's not one part of me that wants to get involved with him at the moment. I do think the horse that won the race is a better bet, better value option. Elek Tomp, I think 5 to 1 or whatever he is a perfectly respectable looking each way alternative. You know, he won in a fast time and he did everything right. And he's a kind of horse you can ride a race on, whereas Facile Vega, is he going to be as good off the speed? You know, they're going to have to come up with a different plan than to what they had the other time. So there's lots of doubts about him at the moment. So yeah, I'd be, because I wouldn't be wholeheartedly against him, but he's a difficult one to love at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is if you take that 7-2 none on no bet, and he's there on that Tuesday, I don't think he'll be 7-2 on course. Would be my hunch. Whether or not that kind of just turns into a decent performance, we'd have to wait and see. Let's get into Saturday's racing though now. Why we are here, and we're going to start with the Newbury cards. We've got the Betfair Hurdle, of course, the Denman Chase, a decent day's racing as always. They're the Game Spirit as well. Not necessarily the most appealing card for punters, apart from, of course, the Betfair Hurdle. But we'll go through it as we can, kicking off with the Novice Handicap Chase. 3 runners in this one, the 115. Do download the oddschecker app where you can find the best prices, bookie offers, free bets, place terms, and Andy's tips straight to the app every morning of racing, amongst other tipsters. Fabulous is the 4 to 9 favourite for the opener. Unanswered Prayers 9 to 2. Curserine 9 to 2. Andy, any angle into this one?
Yeah, I think the angle is perhaps to look to Unanswered Prayers to perhaps bounce back to the form that we saw when he won two runs ago. The reason we've got 3 runners here is because the ground is going to be good. At some are even saying good to firming places because they obviously can't water. But that is not a problem for Unanswered Prayers, who was really good at Cheltenham when he beat Railway Hurricane. And then he got bogged down in the ground beyond T for 3 here at the last meeting in Newbury. So he's very much a ground dependent horse, as is McFabulous to a degree. But I don't think there's a huge amount between these two. Certainly figures wise, any of the ones that we've got, Unanswered Prayers has run equally as quick as McFabulous has. Like I say, in receipt of quite a chunk of weight, if you're that way inclined, then you'd certainly be looking towards Chris Gordon's horse, because his yard's in good form. They've got the cheek pieces on for the first time, and I imagine they'll be relatively aggressive with him. They tend to ride him forward. So yeah, I don't think that's probably the most straightforward and obvious conclusion that everyone would draw to, because I'd imagine that McFabulous would probably be a shade of odds on without seeing any betting.
Yeah, I mean, McFabulous heavily odds on at 4 to 9 as it stands right now.
4 to 9, goodness me,
yeah.
That is short.
Too short. I mean, could you just lay McFabulous at 4 to 9?
Yeah, he wouldn't be getting any of my money at 4 to 9.
Not many would.
No. I don't know what Ed thinks. I mean, Ed's a value man, but I mean, I'm sure even he can't come up with too many options in this race. But yeah, it doesn't strike.
That's a dig at me, Andy, saying I'm not a value man. But Ed, where do you stand?
I just swerve this race totally. Yeah, I mean, McFabulous is always he's a nice horse, but I always get a feeling there's a little bit of a hole in him. That he's never found quite as much off the bridle when push comes to shove. He always travels very well, and then there's not a lot after it. And if by travelling very well he can use that kind of class to see off his rivals, then it will be good enough. But I always worry about him in a battle, I suppose, would be the way of summing it up. And he went out like a light on very soft ground at Kempton, obviously behind Time Hill, which is a kind of different caliber of opposition to this. But he's got his ground. Paul Nicholls' team in red hot form. But we're talking about yards in form. Chris Gordon, I mean, he's having a season to remember. I mean, started February with a bang, isn't he? He's operated at 41% strike rate for February. That yard are flying. And yeah, not a race I've got any particular angle in. I'm desperately trying to find one. But yeah, I'm struggling here. So I'm very happy to sit this one out.
On to the 150 now. Handicap hurdle over 3 miles. Barbados Bucks, the 7-2 favourite ahead of West to the Bridge at 6 to 1. Jatalui is 7 to 1 alongside Annual Invictus. Regarding Ruth 8 to 1. JBY 9 to 1. Flemenstein 10 to 1. Bridge North 11 to 1. Sirobi is 16 to 1. 9 runners here. A friendlier betting heat for sure. Ed, how are you seeing this?
It is in many respects. Also, in many ways, makes it more difficult because I'm kind of got three or four here on the short list of 9. Obviously, Barbados Bucks by kind of default, and the power of connections is favourite here. And it's run 2 really solid races recently off marks of 128, off the same mark again here. That was last seen finishing 3rd in that Pertemps qualifier. I suppose if you're kind of looking at it from that perspective, and it, almost Barbados Bucks could do winning to guarantee getting a run at Prestbury Park. I mean, if 128 he would get in some years. Like all good journalists, I haven't got the stats in front of me. I did go through it the other night in terms of minimum marks to get into the races. But just something to bear in mind if you're, they've got him qualified for the Pertemps and he's floating around on 128. It might be a case of they really need to go to the well with him in order to get him into that race. But look, all in all, again, another one I'm finding a bit tricky. I would potentially, if I'm going to roll the dice, only a tentative pick, go with Annual Invictus. As I said, the Chris Gordon team, absolutely in scintillating form. Look, he's up to 139 now, but Freddie Gordon's on board, claiming the 7. I think this ground would be no problem at all, as we've seen the evidence of that at Cheltenham in the back end of last year. It was unseasonably dry for the November and the December meetings, and he pinged off that ground, and then there's rain-softened ground at Wincanton in the same race Barbados Bucks ran in, but I don't think he ever really went a yard on that surface. So I think the ground's going to make a huge difference to him. So yeah, all in all, I'm probably looking through that Wincanton. That kind of Wincanton form lines is probably holding the key to this. But again, I'm boring you to tears here and everybody, but I've got no real strong views. I honestly think this is the kind of race you can make a case for 4 or 5 of them in here, and I've got kind of split allegiances.
And an Invictus, a family affair here. Freddie Gordon riding for his dad, Chris Gordon, 7-1. Best price, that's with Bet365, a tentative selection there for Ed. Andy, anything stronger? Not
really, no. I'm of a similar persuasion to Ed, really. His kind of humdrum approach is pretty much the way I see it as well. So many hard to sort of get a handle on horses at the moment, largely due to the fact a lot of these have been probably wanting better ground for a little while now, but they have got disappointing form figures next to the names because of soft ground. The likes of JBY, for instance, he hasn't finished off his last 2 races with any degree of purpose, but you would put that down to proper winter ground he just doesn't operate on. I think he could run well if he bounces back to some of his best form. He's always been a horse that Alan King's thought quite a bit of, and he's spoken about him in fairly favourable terms right from his novice days, but I don't think he's quite gone on from that. They've got the cheek pieces on as well, just perhaps to kind of buck his ideas up a little bit. He would be one tentatively who I'd put forward, but then you've got Regarding Ruth, who wants fast ground and clearly goes well fresh and goes at the track. Fleming's Tide, unlike most of Paul Nicholls' horses, definitely wants good ground. When he won at Ascot last year, it was good ground, and he's been a bit iffy on softish surface since, including pulling up last time out. And I could see why Ed's making a good valid case out for Annual Invictus, because on his days we saw at Cheltenham in the year on decent ground, he's pretty good on the yards in form. So, yeah, I'm struggling for inspiration here, I'm afraid. It's definitely one I'm not going to be putting up on my column. But if forced to have a bet, and of course we've all got to come up with a selection to make it fun, then JBY would be probably about as tentative one as I could ever come up with.
JBY, a couple of tentative selections for maybe a very tentative reverse forecast, if you wanted to just spin it into a huge price. 9-1 JBY, best price again with 365. The way to play this. Hopefully, we're going to get some firmer stuff from the guys, and a cracking Denman Chase next up. Hitman, Ed, will come to you first. I know you've been a fan of Hitman in the past. Pulled up last time, but 2-1 favourite here. Eldorado Allen, another horse. This is almost the Ed Quigley Roll of Honour. Just need your darling in here. Fanny of Desperate 4-1. Does he know 7-1? I feel like you put Does he know a few times as well.
I tipped him as a winner on the show. Yeah, I did actually. It was a winning tip on the show back in November. Yeah, you're right.
I have a feeling you may have put up the top 4 in the betting here in the last 12 months, which is pretty cool. I mean, they should rename this.
Yeah, Zanza was my grand annual pick for 2022. The only Only two I wouldn't have tipped.
You backed Kalashnikov for the Supreme in 2018, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So the only one I haven't tipped in any shape or form is Sam Brown at any point, I think. Yeah. So
is today the day?
Probably the winner. Yeah. Yeah. No. It's a good old race, isn't it? Some few horses here are getting on a bit. It's just Sam Brown I couldn't have on this ground. That would be the concern. You know, this looks pretty quick. Go back to the top of the market. It's fascinating. Hitman, you point out. Obviously, I was very keen on his chances for the King George. He was going okay down the back and made an absolute Horlicks one of the fences, and then Boulder Counts burst a blood vessel, and that was that, really. So a lot of people said, oh, well, he didn't stay 3 miles. Well, it was totally inconclusive as to whether he did or didn't stay 3 miles. He was popping away kind of down the back straight, made an error, and that was pulled up. So Paul Nicholls is rolling the dice again with 3 miles, an easy 3, being at Newbury, a very fair, flat track. And of all the horses in here, I still think he's the one who retains the most potential, the most scope to kind of go up to another level. With a lot of these, I pretty much think we know where we are, or they are regressing. That makes sense. I mean, I do like Zanza. He's bonkers and he's beautiful, but he's got loads to find on figures. I don't think he jumps well enough. Kalashnikov, I'd like to see deeper ground. And at the age of 10, again, has a bit to find. I'm going to put a line through that one. Sam Brown, I said I just think the ground will be too quick. Does he know? I don't think he'll be quick enough either. He just looks a relentless galloper. I just think on this ground over this trip on a flat track, there'll be something else with too much turbo. So, yeah, and originally I'm concentrating on the top 3. Eldorado Allen, I mean, this is his race, isn't it? He's just been a bit disappointed this season in the fact that when he came back behind Brave Man's game at Weatherby, I thought he would kick on. And he then was beaten a dozen lengths or so by Protector at Haydock, which again wasn't a bad race, and then was beaten 20-odd lengths in the King George. And it's the form of the Tizar team's a big worry. I know they had Scirocco's Dream, the mare, win yesterday, but I think they've got one winner in the last 40 runners. They've got a bit cold, that yard, and obviously he's got to give weight away here. He's got to concede £6 to Hitman, which makes him kind of the clear pick on figures. So I basically got it between Hitman and Fanny and Destraval. I think Hitman's got the most upside to him. He's only 7. He's lightly raced. He's unexposed at this trip. I can forgive the blip last time out. You know, Paul Nicholls is a master getting these horses back. Fanny and Destraval, if there was a bit more juice in the ground, I would be quite keen on for this. Just given, I think this horse he's got very good Newbury form. 2 wins here, and I think the kind of profile of his form is often skewed by some kind of suboptimal performances, like Cheltenham, for example. There's another horse in the yard, Brave Shaska, which has got a very similar profile, where it seems to run abysmally at Cheltenham and then gets priced accordingly at another track next time out. And I think it could be a little bit a case of Fanny and Destraval here, but I would like to see a bit more juice in the ground. I know the couple of times he's won at Newbury, there's been lots to give underfoot, as a lot of Venetians do. So all in all, I'm with Hitman. As much as I love Eldorado Allen, I'd hate to take him on. I just think he might be artificially short at 11-4 here. So yeah, I'm Hitman, Fanny and Destraval, straight forecast.
Oh, love it. Hitman and Fanny and Destraval 2-1. Hitman, Fanny and Destraval 4-1. Can't give you a forecast price, of course, but look out for that. A couple of firms also paying 3 places here, despite 7 runners. You've got Skybet, William Hill, Coral, Unibet, all doing that, as a Betfred and Ladbrokes. So, if you wanted to take each way about Fanny and Destraval at 4-1, just taking a slight hit if he finishes 2nd or 3rd, that would be one way to play that. Andy?
Yeah, 2 trainers that have farmed this race in recent times are Paul Nicholls and Colin Tizard, and lo and behold, I've got the front 2 in the market here. Native River, I think, won it 3 times. Clandazobo, Secret Investor, and Eldorado Allen last year, of course. And Eldorado Allen last year, I think if he runs to that level, I think he'll win again. You know, he beat Royal Pagayan and Clandazobo, 2, familiar names that perform to a high level year in, year out, proper genuine Grade 1 horses, and he beat them fair and square on the day. I think his season's not been too bad. I mean, I don't think he's a Grade 1 horse, Eldorado Allen, but in Grade 3, Grade 2 company, he's fine. Protector was just too good for him at Haydock, as Ed's pointed out. Nothing wrong with his run behind Braidman's game at Weatherby. I think, again, a run similar to that level will see him the one to beat for me here. And, the ground pops and Kempton, the combination of the 2 probably just didn't play into his strengths. But on decent ground, 3 miles, flat track, left-handed, he's as good as any at this kind of level. And Hitman does coming off the back of a pull-up last time. I know there are excuses for him, but I'd sooner back Eldorado Allen, who proved his well-being much better than Hitman did at Kempton. And for that reason, I'm a little bit surprised that he's a 3-to-1 shot. I'd have him a good bit shorter than that. Certainly, pay a decent amount of respect to Hitman because he is a good horse on his days. He proved at Haydock 2 months ago. Agree with Ed with does he know and Sam Brown. I'd actually think we'll kind of like come up with a little bit of a mad moment every now and again. And I did think Zanza was slightly overpriced because I did look at his overall record here at Haydock. I had to remind myself of it. I put him up here in a handicap over 2 miles 6 earlier in the season. He bolted. I think he's only ever lost once at Newbury in about 7 runs.
4 from 5 at Newbury.
Yeah, exactly. It's something ridiculous. So, as we saw last week at the Dublin Racing Festival, I think at this level, when we're dealing with horses who can beat each other depending on what side of bed they get out of on a regular basis, it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if he was to outrun his odds. Let's say, I wouldn't be like looking at Zanza coming into the winners' enclosure, think how on earth did that happen? Well, it happened because he loves Newbury, so we kind of like we knew that beforehand. So I'd probably go Eldorado Allen, despite the yard not being in the greatest of nick. I'm aware of that as well. And yeah, with Zanza, just probably having a little bit of shrapnel at my pocket as well, just for the insurance.
I love these ones because it's a 7-runner race. We put up 4 of the horses, and I'd love to see the data of who the listeners backed, see who's made the best case. We'll never know. But yeah, Zanza at 30-to-1 best price as it stands now, but that is a quarter to 2 with Paddy's and Betfair Sportsbook. But you can shop around, and if you go to William Hill, you're getting 28-to-1, a fifth of 3 for a horse that, as Andy says and Ed said, has a brilliant record here. And then 3-to-1 with the same firm, William Hill, for Eldorado Allen, the one that Andy's willing to take out of the top of the market, and the one that Ed wanted to swerve. So on to the Game Spirit Chase now, the Grade 2 over 2 miles. Grenadine is the 4-to-9 favourite, ahead of Fun and Buell Savola at 11-to-2, Elixir the Nuts 8-to-1, Melistic 9-to-1, Mortlock, the rag of the field at 80-to-1. Another kind of disappointingly small field here, Andy. Any way to play this?
I thought about this quite extensively. How do we sort of like wring as much juice out of this race as we possibly can without tipping a 4-to-9 shot and advising everyone to lump on Grenadine, which is going down the blatantly obvious route. Look, Grenadine's a high class horse, we all know, good enough to win at Tingle Creek on good ground. I think he could probably give most horses over 2 miles a race, and that includes Edward Stone and Ergamin. He's not going to be carrying my money here at that price. I've looked outside the box a little bit here, and I thought, well, who's the most likely to give him a race? And unlike a lot of Venetia Williams horses, Finn and Boone Savola is probably the only one in the yard, certainly Chase, who I can think of, who actually wants and crying out for good ground. He just doesn't operate as well on soft ground. I think because he's not an overly big horse, and he just isn't as good. But give him a good ground surface, and particularly Newbury, he's pretty deadly. He won this race last year, beating Sco Royale and Hitman. So that's one piece of form that suggests that we shouldn't be overlooking him totally in this particular race. I can forgive him his last couple of runs as well because of obviously soft ground. He was never in the race at Cheltenham the other day, and similar comments apply to Kempton. But I think you will see a totally different horse here come the weekend because he's at his favourite track, and you can back him at 11-to-8 without Grenadine. So I think he'll have too much speed for Mortlock. Maliistic, I don't mind him because he won a very good handicap the other day at Doncaster in a fast time. And obviously, Elixir the Nuts, he's a useful horse in his own right in his day. But I do think Finn and Buell Savola is better than him. He's certainly better than him around Newbury. So I'd be fairly confident that Finn and Buell Savola would beat the other 3. So we haven't got to worry about Grenadine, and we can still back a horse in this race at odds against. So there you go. Managed to come up with some value. 11-to-8 for Finn and Buell Savola to without the favourite.
Yeah, 11-8 with Sky Bet. That is only 2 firms out with that market at the moment, Bet365 and Sky Bet. So every chance that another might stick the head above that as well. So that's why it's important. Don't just go straight to Sky Bet. Check out the oddschecker grids. Use the app. Find out where the value is and punt it there. Finding Bill Savola 11-8 best price at the moment.
Ed's shaking his head. He's thinking he's still tipped 11-8 shot.
No, he's thinking he's taking the words out of my mouth, I reckon.
I'm thinking I've been an absolute clever clogs at 11-8 without. I'm exactly the same bet here. I would be going with Fedible Sivilla, 11-8 without. I think Granatina win comfortably on this ground, and pretty much every reason Andy said. I mean, this horse form figures 1-2-1 at Newbury. He's never one of these Venetia Newbury love affair horses where the form of the horse just elsewhere doesn't match up, but bring him to this course and he's absolute mustard. I mean, if there was one worry with Fedible Sivilla, I'd take Andy's point on ground. It would be more, he was runner-up to Nurgamine, obviously, in the Champion Chase. And I just wonder if that race has left a mark with him, because since then, his form has absolutely dropped off a cliff. He was pulled up at Atria after that. He came home last in the Tingle Creek. He was beaten a distance at Kempton over Christmas. And then in the rearranged Clarence House Chase, he never went a yard and was more or less tailed off there. So there is that worry that he might have just gone. But I, by and large, I don't think there's a lot else in here to get him at it. And if he's going to show his old spark, coming back to Newbury on good ground is exactly where Fedible Sivilla will excel. So, yeah, I'd have go Granatine to beat Fedible Sivilla on the old Exacta or of more appeal. I'm totally on board with Andy here. 11-8 without the Nichols hot pot, I think is fair game.
Great stuff. You disagreed on the last bit on the same page there. On to the Betfair Hurdle now. Philly Bay is the 7-2 favourite here for Emmett Mullins, who we know is pretty good when he brings them over this side of the Irish Sea. Philly Bay 7-2. Rubode is 15-2. Hacker de Place is 9-1, as is Ekar Allen. Monvielle is 11-1. No Ordinary Joe 11-1. Master Chewy 12-1. Teddy Blue 14-1. Okan Risk is 14-1. Florian Fortune 18-1. 20-1. Dear Mark and York Sea. And Favois and Highway 102 33-1 bar those. 18 runners. And Andy, it feels like a kind of annual tradition where the winner of this suddenly becomes a lot of people's shrewd outside pick for the Supreme, and then they go to the Supreme and run below par. Who do you think is the one likely to follow in those footsteps, or is there a potential star who could now, in what looks like a very open Supreme, go forward and take that chance?
I don't think we've got a Supreme Novices Hurdle horse in this race this year, unless Master Chewy does something incredible. Because you're looking at quality horses. I'm just trying to think of some of their names now that ran in this. My Sense of Yours, I think he was one, wasn't it? I'm sure there was a thing of John Joe's. Was it Get Me Out of Here? Was that another one? Yeah. Ed, yeah. I think we're dealing with that kind of horse, who is a genuine sort of grade 2, grade 1 horse in the making.
Zarkanda as well, didn't that win?
Yeah. Kalashnikov,
and in recent years, you got Kalashnikov, you got Al Dance as well. Soaring Glory.
Recession proof, didn't that win for him?
I think you're right.
2011. Anyone else? Getting out of his there.
My brain's still in a time machine for 10 years ago, you see, George, that's why, yeah.
But then he should have got Splash of Ginge, 2014.
Splash of Ginge, yeah, in a bulk, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. When you're talking about a lot of those horses there, you mentioned in a trainer quite a lot of times, and that's Nigel Twiston-Davies. He just has an uncanny knack of either winning it, or even if he doesn't win it, running a horse that runs damn well in it. I like to move it second in it last year in the same colours as Master Chewy. I think Guard Your Dreams was 5th behind Pick Dory or Soaring Glory. And in the year that Pick Dory won it, I'm sure he had the 4th horse home as well. The name escapes me there. I'm sure Ned could do a bit of research while I'm...
Ballyandy won it. Ballyandy won it, did he?
Ballyandy won it, yeah. And he's won it with Splash of Ginger, you mentioned as well, and Al Dancer. So anything that Nigel Twiston-Davies runs, and he's only got one in it this year, you've got to take note. And he's snuck in here off bottom weight, Master Chewy. Yeah. I don't think his level of form adds up to a massive amount, but I do think the horse that beat him last day at Plumpton's nice. One of those Noel Feely horses, Hansard for the Gary Moore team. He was second to a nice horse with Nicky Henderson's the time before, Attica. and he was third to the much vaunted Picar, probably more to do with me making him a horse that he isn't, at Chepstow. But it's still good form because Hullenbach was in that race, and if Hullenbach was in here off 10-4, he'd be even money. So he has got some interesting form lines. He's actually been dropped in the handicap in the mark. He's gone from 126 to 124 for running second to Hansard, which I think was odd. But either way, we strip it down, he won't mind the ground, and he comes here as a typical Nigel Twiston Davis horse that runs well in this race. That's what I'm getting at. So at 12 to 1, I think we're looking at 5-6 places if you shop around.
Let's find the best price for you. You've got 12 to 1, 6 places, Sky Bet.
Yeah, he's running enough good time figure races, even though he's a novice, to suggest that he'll be handy enough off bottom weight. So I'd definitely have him on my shortlist. I'm a massive fan of Farley Bay. I know the previous owner, and even though he sold it to JP, he didn't sell it to JP because he genuinely wanted to, if that makes any sense. I just think he made it an offer he couldn't refuse. And he was, he's kind of like almost like JP's teaser nowadays, isn't he? The old owner with you see whatever horse he seems to get with a bit of potential, JP comes and gets it. The shunter, etc., etc. He sold Noble Yates as well before he won the national, so he's very much a seller, Paul Byrne. But he's a shrewd operator as well, and he's Evan Mullins, and I think they've had this race on their mind for quite a while, so I'm led to believe. And I do think Akar LN is an interesting runner. I was prepared to put this horse up last week in the race that Gaelic Warrior won, the old Piers Hurdle, as they used to call it back in the day. Ed will know that. But he was a late defector, because I don't think JP or Willie Mullins thought that it was a wise option to take on Gaelic Warrior, who got in off an incredibly lenient mark of 143 and made it look rather easy. But he's a genuine Grade 1 horse. We know Icar Allen's just short of that class based on his sort of Triumph Hurdle campaign last season. But he did run well behind a horse called Merlin Giant, who coincidentally was trained by Emmett Mullins on his only start of the season. But he made an incredible amount of ground up from the back of the field. He was the only one of the horses held up that day to make any inroads into the winner, and I upgraded him, and I've been waiting for him to run ever since. And the fact that Willie's missed a home soil race to come over here and pitch him in this race, even though Filey Bay's in it, he's not going to be in there as a pacemaker. Then I think he's overpriced. So my way of playing this race would be to back both Icar LN and Master Chewy each way at the best prices you can possibly get. 5 or 6 places if you can get it, and hopefully one of them will be there or thereabouts at the very least.
Yeah, Icar LN, you're getting 9 to 1 best price. That's for 5 places.
Okay, that's good enough.
You can get 8 to 1 6 places with Hills, which might be
like I say, if you shop around, I'll be amazed if one of those is not in the frame. I mean, Icar LN's a genuine good horse. Master Chewy hasn't proved it yet, but he could, like I say, he's one of those slippery Nigel Twiston Davis horses that you could make a serious case out for.
Yeah, Master Chewy, 12 to 1. Ed, how are you playing this?
Yeah, I'm 2 versus the field. One of those is Master Chewy. Definitely on board with this horse. He got bogged down in a bog. I thought it plumped the last time out, and a bit of a muddling affair. I don't think it was a bad run, albeit on the face of it, it's disappointing to be turned over at 4 to 7. Again, he travelled like a dream in that. To a point, but the key runners, as Andy says, is that Cheltenham December Novices run where he was runner-up to Attica. Again, the form of that I don't think is too bad at all. The horse in 4th, Paul Nicholls' Time for a Tune, has come out and won since. So, and again, just watch the way that race was run though. Master Chewy looked like he was going to win by half the track at one point, and I say petered out would be doing him a disservice. He was beating the length of the quarter, but he didn't quite find as much as we thought. That was on the new course at Cheltenham, much more of a stamina test here to Newbury, back on better ground on a flat track. I think he could travel off a strong pace and kind of be delivered late, if you see what I'm saying. And if you go back to that earlier in the season, obviously he would have won at Ascot, wouldn't he, in that decent race if he hadn't crashed out at the last.
I've still got hot nightmares of that one.
Sorry for that one, Andy.
That one up, yeah.
But point being, I think he will travel into the race as good as anything. And I agree, 12 to 1 each way, 6 places looks. I find it hard to boot him out the frame. So I've gone with him. And I'm looking at another horse at the bottom of the weights here, Deer Mark for Sam Thomas and Charlie Deutsch. Is just on a bit of a roll at the moment. Arrives here on a hat trick, going through the gears, sneaks an ear off 1-2-5. His overall profile of form, nothing to write home about yet. But he's just totally unexposed. They said he's got that kind of massive upside to him. No weight here. Ground, bit of a question mark. That is, his improvement appears to come on soft ground, but he did bolt up in that Hereford bumper on decent ground last season, beating a horse of Paul Nicholls called Lallygag, who's gone on to be a mid-130s rated hurdler. So I don't think that the ground may be too much of a problem. Like his dam's he's a presenting mare. So all in all, I'm at the bottom of the weights here. Look at those, the totally unexposed low weight sorts. I'm Master Chewy and Deer Mark, my 2 each way versus the field.
Deer Mark, best price 20 to 1 at time of recording. That's standout with Bet365.
It's happened again, George. We've got those gremlins in that must be tapping into our chat, because no sooner as we mentioned, or you did, Master Chew, top price 12 to 1, 6 places with Sky Bet. That's gone.
Yeah.
No, 10s.
Who's betting with Sky Bet? And the 3 of us.
Definitely not. My hands are here.
It's not me either. Master Chewy, now 12 best price with Bet365. On to the, we don't have any prices for the 410. We do have prices for the bumper, surprisingly, with William Hill. Go Towards a 7-2 favourite, Meatloaf 4 to 1, Fireflyer 9 to 2, Shinji 7 to 1. Most of these just having one run coming into this, and also in the 410, maybe not a novice hurdle befitting the quality of the rest of the card. Andy, anything to flag in from your speed figures in either of these two?
Yeah, there is. I want to get with a race in particular at Huntingdon the other day, which I'll flag up, because I do think the horse that won it of John Joe's is quite a nice type. A horse called Imperial Bead, who travelled ominously well throughout the contest and got the job done with a bit to spare. But he beat a horse of Lucy Wadham's called Arkoob, who Ed will know quite well, I'm sure, off the flat, although he's not really much of a flat man compared to his national hunt kind of background. But he's a good horse, Arkoob, on the flat. He was trained by Willie Jarvis, and he won quite a few handicaps on fast ground. I think he ran reasonably well in the Cambridge, if memory serves me well. But he does want a strongly run race. So I think that's one of the reasons why he ran quite well the other day. But he could definitely brush up with his jumping. There's room for manoeuvre in that department. I didn't think he jumped with any great degree of fluency to Huntingdon. Whether it was the right way round for him, I don't know. But he was out on the wing. I think Bryony Frost was at pains to make sure that he was seeing his hurdles, and she took him right on the outside, so he had plenty of daylight. But in doing so, he kind of, like I say, jumped to his left a little bit and lost a lot of ground. I massively upgraded his run. I thought he was the one to take out the race other than the winner. He was well backed on the day, which suggests that they liked him. They thought he'd been doing enough at home to win a race of that nature. And with that run under his belt, for fitness and more experience and likely to come on for it mentally, I think he'll run a really big race at Newbury on Saturday, and the ground won't bother him. And one to mention in the bumper as well, I think Fergal O'Brien has got to be the best target trainer of bumpers in the country. I know he hasn't had the Cheltenham Festival bumper winner because Willie Mullins always wins that. But to be fair, Fergal probably doesn't consider that, as a race he can win. But when he does plot his way around all the other listed races here, there, and everywhere, I mean, he turned over the hot favourite the other day, Queen's Fortune, down at Market Raisin with a horse he that hadn't run for a long time. And he's got a here called Go to War, who really impressed me with the way he won at Utoxeter on his debut. He was well backed. He was given a typical Paddy Brennan ride, dropped him out the back, rode him with loads of confidence, came through strongly at the end. He beat a nice horse called Fingal Bridge. I think Ollie Murphy might train him, and he went on to win next time out at Chepstow. And they pulled well clear, and the time was incredibly good for the quality for that kind of race. So on good ground, which he won on first time out, he's got his good ground again. I'd be expected to see Go to War running a nice race there in that final listed bumper.
go towards 7-2, but best price favourite with William Hill.
Oh, is he favourite?
And,
That's a bit disappointing. I thought he might be a bit bigger than that.
And then, no prices yet for Arcube in the 410. Anything to add on those two, or should we get over to Warwick, where you're going to be tomorrow?
Nothing in the penultimate race. The bumper, normally races I avoid like the plague, but by far the horse jumping off the page of me is the bottom one on your card there, Martin Keithley's Shinji, who was with Roger Varian, absolutely hacked up. I had to double check I was not, I know I'd had a couple of drinks the night before, but I looked up at the card and I saw Fakenham and Roger Varian there with a runner in the bumper. I thought I was absolutely seeing stars. And this horse absolutely just took off. I wonder if Roger was there, faking him in November. I don't know. But anyway, it absolutely took off. Won half the track. Subsequently, it sold for 60 grand, gone to the Martin Keithley team. The yard are flying, the Keithleys. And Sam Twister Davis put to ride. He's the most exciting, could be anything. He's at Kingston Hill from a King's Best Dam. I mean, fantastic flat pedigree, if you like, and be really interesting to see. Good ground over 2 miles here. He might just have some serious gears, this horse. As I say, it just really took me surprised. The way he won, who the connections were, and subsequently has changed hands for a fair bit of money and gone to the Martin Keithley team. So might have a tickle on Shinji, just subjective, but the way in which he won a nothing race at Fakenham did make me sit up and take note.
Yeah, Shinji there 7-1 with William Hill impressing Ed for Roger Varian at Fakenham, as he says. We'll move on to Warwick now. Before we do, I'm just going to mention the Racing Weekly are having a live show at the George Pub in Chiswick on Monday, the 6th of March. Rishi Persad and Sam Turner will be there. That's £10 for a ticket, which gets you a pint and a pie as well. So do get on the oddschecker site where you can find all the details there. We'll put them in the description to this on YouTube and podcast as well. Get your ticket. It should be a great day. Getting some festival pointers from the guys. Racing Weekly live on Monday, the 6th of March. Tenner a ticket, pint and a pie. What could be better? On then to Warwick now. I'm sure you'll be having a couple of pints and a couple of pies here, Ed. We'll start with the Kingmaker, and then we'll just do any other business because we haven't got loads of time. Not the best betting heat. John Bon, looking to throw a counter punch to Al Fabiolo's win at Leopardstown last week. 4 on here. Haddock's Zobo 11-2. Seen a few shrewd customers just thinking that Haddock's Zobo might be a spot of value there. Bass Rock 20-1 and Calicho 50-1. John Bon 4 on. I mean, this isn't one to get too excited out. Do we expect this to be a procession, or could Gary Moore's horse spring something of a surprise?
I think it'll be a procession, to be honest with you. I respect Haddock's Zobo. I think they'll come home in race card order, in betting order, to be honest with you. I don't see any kind of surprises lurking in here. Look, it was a brilliant performance from the Gary Moore horse last time out over course and distance. Ran off like the clappers, didn't he? And made them all really go on very deep ground. I just wonder if a bit flattered by that, is truth be told, and if they kind of grab the bull by the horns and don't mess around here and get on with things with John Bon. I just wonder whether that might kind of break Haddock's Zobo's spirit, if you like, and also on this much quicker ground as well. It was really deep here at the start of January. It's amazing, really, in the space of 4 weeks how the ground's up to. And that's something to bear in mind here. I think it's officially good with the odd good to soft place, according to the clerk of the course. And it's going to be dry and 13 degrees on the day. Last weather forecast I looked at. You look at it, proper good ground here. This is going to be rattling for this time of year. I think that will play against the Gary Moore horse. Basically, I'm trying to get enthusiastic about it. I just want to see a nice spectacle. John Mon go around 10 lengths on the bridle. And as I said, no kind of silly business of him unseating or going lame or something stupid, because him against Al Fabiolo, as the second race on your cards at Presbury Park in 4 weeks' time, is a race that really does whet the appetite. We love those big clashes, and so often in racing, George, we know they don't materialise for one reason or another. So looking for John Mon to come through unscathed, get the job done, and then onwards and upwards to Presbury Park.
Andy, anything to add to that? Do you expect it to be the same?
I don't quite think it'll be the absolute complete and utter cakewalk. The time figures that we've got Haddocks de Zobo doing are very, very favourable. Not quite as good as John Bon. We've got John Bon running 74 twice, and we've got Haddocks de Zobo running a 72 twice. Now, obviously, there was a bit of a chasm in quality, but the numbers actually, furlong per furlong, that they did in their respective races aren't that too far apart. So I do think they are wise to roll the dice with Haddocks de Zobo. Certainly ran a track that he likes. It's not as if he's not tested around Warwick. It suits his run style. It's a front runner's track. And I think for that reason, I think this race is really interesting to watch. How John Bon goes about it, how connections go about applying John Bon to the race. Do they try and make the run? Because I think ideally he'd want an uncontested lead. They might just have to play second fiddle and take their medicine early and drop him in behind and say, well, let's see how he gets on in behind horses. So they've got an extra string to their bow for the Arkle, because that race is obviously going to be run at a helter-skelter pace. I actually don't think John Bon sets the standard in the Arkle division at the very moment in time. So he has got to throw a counter-punch back in the direction of Alfabiolo. I think sets a very, very high bar. I think he should be favourite on what he did in Ireland the other day. That's just my personal opinion, because I think that race is just a totally different kind of environment to what John Bond's been in so far. He's been allowed to sort of like, not potter around because he has run two good numbers, but you know what I mean? But that Irish Arkle, that's what I'm getting at, was just a complete worldie of a race that had everything. You know, they went a million from the start. All the best Irish horses were in it, and only the survival of the fittest came through. So I do think this is going to be a very, very intriguing affair. More intriguing than the betting and getting involved with financially. And let's face it, Haddocks de Zobo's last two horses that he beat have both absolutely hacked up since. I know in lesser grade, but you know, the second and the third have more than franked his form. So yeah, I do think that's, like I say, probably going to be a little bit better viewing, or more intriguing viewing than the odds suggest.
Interesting stuff. Could be not quite the procession according to Andy as we think for John Bon here. Ed, you're going to be there, so I'm guessing you've been through the card here in some detail to make sure you're coming back with your pockets bulging. What are your best bets on the day?
I think the Stolen Silver in the opener could defy top weight in a marker 154. I think the ground's absolutely come in his favour. He's been a bit unlucky this season. He was going well enough in the Paddy Power Gold Cup back in November when unseated 4 out, the form of which is working out an absolute treat, isn't it? Il Redito's come out and won since. Midnight River come out and won a huge pot since. Obviously, Garlaw would have been second at worst if he hadn't capsized at the last in the Skybet Chase. I think French Dynamite, did he chase home a decent horse in a grade 2 last time out in Ireland? So that form looks red hot. And then Stolen Silver last time out, as I said, obviously chased home Midnight River on ground that I think just had gone for him. I think it was as soft as he would have wanted, and I think in the circumstances that is a very good run. Much happier on this surface, so I'm taking him to defy marker 154. I expect Love Envoy
6 to 4.
win.
I'll just say there 6 to 4 best price as it is. Yeah,
6 to 4. In the second race, I'd expect Love Envoy to win. The only nervousness I would have would be on ground this quick. You're looking at genuine good ground. They've made no kind of, haven't hidden the fact that she's very happy on deep ground. Actually spoke to Johnny Burke about her. He's not as worried. He doesn't think about the ground as perhaps we're all making it out. But it's got to be a slight concern that her best form has all come on very deep ground. She met quicker surface, didn't she, when she went over to Fairy House, and she didn't see which way Brandy Love went. And that could just be Brandy Love was in a different postcode ability-wise to her. But it's got to be a slight quirk if you're getting involved at 4 to 7. I wouldn't be shocked if the old campaigner in there, I'm going to have a little quid in. I'm going to look at the without markets, or may even back win only, Indefatigable for Paul Webber. She's 10.
25 to 1.
Yeah, she's a spring horse. She's won this before. She loves good ground. And on the figures, she doesn't actually have all that much to find of BHA rating of 142. She's not all that far behind Love Envoy, especially as much as the prices would lead you to believe. So a bit of a race I'm treading with caution there. We've covered the Kingmaker. Onto the 313. We don't have prices for it yet. I expect that Hull and Back we've been discussing on the show, I expect will be at a fairly short price for this. So probably a race I'll be looking for some each way value elsewhere. My best bet on the card, so comes in the 348. Sounds like a bus timetable, doesn't it? But I'm with the I'm with the Dan and Harry Skelton combination here. Hearted Duderi, who's had his niggle, shall we say, but absolutely hacked up here on stable debut in a novice hurdle at the back end of 2021, and that was on really quick ground. Travelled smoothly, hit the front and hit the turbo, and looked really smart. Subsequent to that, I didn't run a bad race at all. When going to the December novices at Cheltenham, actually came home last, but I don't think it was all that bad a run when you look back at it. And then subsequent to that, was off the track for the best part of a year before reappearing at Exeter just before Christmas and finishing runner-up to that horse of Venetia Williams, who was a progressive sort Giello. Now, again, that was extended 2-2 on very tacky ground. I just wonder whether he got a little bit worried out of it, and it's totally plausible that he would have needed the run given such a big absence. So all in all, coming back to the place is happy hunting ground, back to the minimum trip on quicker ground for mark of 117 here. The same mark as last time out. I think he's still open to improvement. So yeah, Hearted Duderi for me in the 348, George.
Hearted Duderi 7-2 best price as it stands now. Andy, anything to add in terms of the card at Warwick?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether Ed pays any attention to what I say, but he might want to revise his nap of the day in that 348. There's an incredibly well handicapped horse in that race, better handicapped than the Skelton horse. This horse has caught my eye every single time that he's run this season, and they've just been riding him wrong. The ground's been wrong for him. It's the thing of Stuart Edmonds is Bubble Doobie. He went into my notebook. I don't think anyone missed him first time out beyond Timorris at Chepstow. He was absolutely tailed off. Well, he wasn't tailed off. He was right out the back turning for home, and he came through, side through the field, and the actual Racing Post comments were eye catcher straight away. You know, if they put that, the cat's out the bag. You know, any fool could see that. But obviously, Timorris is a genuine Grade 1 horse. Sergeant Wilson III has won out of office, the fourth horse, bolted up next time out at Chepstow, beating two subsequent winners. I think he's still in the Supreme Novices. Pembroke was 7th. Who was a genuine Grade 2 horse. General Majano, who was 8th, he got beat 20 odd lengths. He won the other day at I think it was Fontwell. So that's that form line done and dusted. And then he travelled really well again at Ascot next time out. He kind of cut out a little bit. I was a little bit disappointed with his finishing effort, although he did get hampered by Master Cheery, who fell at last. But again, we're talking good novices, at Ascot. And then he travelled again well last time out at Ludlow, but the ground was poached. It was that horrible winter ground that they say it's good to soft, but it's basically good to soft in places, or tacky. And he got there travelling again on the home turn, but he just didn't quite see it out again against the likes of Pembroke, Western Zephyr, Amron Sage, who I think was odds on the other week at Ludlow when they called the meeting off, the Henderson runner. So he's been in incredibly deep against genuine 130, 140 horses. He's been given a mark of 113 for his opening gambit in a handicap. If there's a better handicapped horse in that race, I'll be amazed. So if they ride him correctly, i.e. give him a bit of a chance, and I think the key to him is good ground. I don't think he's wanted soft winter ground, and he's finally got his conditions. So he'll be travelling as well as anything off the home turn. So I'll be surprised if he's not involved in the finish.
5-1 best price as it stands at the moment. Ed, anything to add to that? No, I'm looking forward to Hearted Duderi winning. But on a good point, we're going to come on in a minute. We're going to come on to our Trixies. So in a kind of perverse kind of way, actually, Bubble Doobie, if it does win, will massively frank the form of one of the horses I've got in my Cheltenham Trixie. So it'd be slightly bittersweet. It will soften the blow to some extent, shall we say? Yeah,
as long as you haven't got your darling in there, Ed. You've got to sack him.
He won't be rated high enough to get in there now, will he? No, I think. But we'll come to that in a minute.
Right. Well, I mean, we were going to have a look at Navan, but we're recording this at the time where final entries are just kind of coming in now, so there are no real markets. I mean, is there anything? I mean, it sounds like Blazing Carl might be making a long-awaited return to the racecourse. Andy, which could have some say in the stayers market?
That would be great because we could do some extra additions in the stayers hurdle, and it'll make it even more interesting if Blazing Cowley's one of them, because he's the one left that has got the most untapped potential, and we thought we might not see him at all this season. But if he has got an entry, then they have hopefully got him back on track. If he wins on Sunday, he could easily be favourite for the stayers, and that includes Tiupu and Home from the Lee. Have already put down reasonable markers. So yeah, I'm looking.
And the French horse has been declared as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, all of a sudden, the stayers from looking a bit of a dead rubber and a bit of a, what on earth do we do with this race kind of thing. It's shaping up like quite a lot of the festival races. All of a sudden, it's becoming more of an interesting betting race, like the Arkle, like the Mares Hurdle with Honeysuckle et al. In it. The Facile de Vega defeat the other day, almost all of a sudden, has given an extra spice of life that or an injection of life that the Supreme needed. So, I think it's only like a month away, but it's starting to get really competitive now. Some of these races that we thought probably were not so, just coming out of the Christmas period.
Right, well, we're going to move on now to the questions posed from listeners and viewers to you both. The first one's just for Andy. The second is for both of you. Would Andy have Sounds Russian as an each-way Gold Cup selection, or have another route for him? Seems to stay on in a very strong race. I feel like you've answered this already, haven't you? Although at the prices now, maybe the value's gone.
Yeah, I still think he's. Look, if they roll the dice with him, and I'm hoping that they do, because I'm saying, what have they got to lose? I mean, I think it's a year where if you take away Galopin de Champs, it's about as wide open as you'd probably see. He's already beaten Noble Yates and Protectorat. I still think Protectorat's a player. I certainly think Noble Yates has got to be in the conversation the way he kept on the other day. But for me, Sounds Russian was the horse to take out of that. What was the name of the race now? The
Cotswold Chase.
Cotswold Chase, yeah. Sorry. Thanks, Ed. I just think they rode him completely wrong. He's used to sort of coming off the speed and powering on late on, having hit a bit of a mid-race crisis. So I think Sean Quinlan, who rode him, he couldn't believe it at the top of the hill when he was in front. He thought, Christ, I've got to keep my foot down here. I don't want to disappoint him. But in doing that, he was in front virtually over a mile and a half from home. And that was very much uncharted territory for Sounds Russian. And in the end, he succumbed to a horse who was probably given a breather and went and picked his pocket late on. And a good horse in that, and a Hoy Senior. But I came away thinking, my goodness me, that Sounds Russian is definitely up to that quality. And if you're talking favourably about a Hoy Senior, Protectorat and Noble Yates, who are still way shorter than in the betting, you've got to have Sounds Russian in that kind of bracket. And I think if they ride him differently in the Gold Cup and give him a bit more of a chance, and not perhaps be so kamikaze with him, he'd be one to certainly factor in from an each way perspective. You could still get 25 to 1 for him.
Yeah, still get 25 to 1, but that's without non-run no bet. You might, given what the connections have said about the possibility of not taking up the the chance, you might want to possibly take 20 to 1 the Sky bet, which is
20 to 1 non running no bet. There's 4 firms now that are going on running no bet. Was it? Might be slightly less than that.
Yeah, no, I think it's more. I think it's more now.
They're all
go to the oddschecker grids on a Cheltenham grid, and you look at the top, and you'll see there's a line for NRNB.
I'd sooner back him than Statler, put it that way. I think that's the most craziest priced horse of the entire festival. I mean, what? Why would you want to back that at 6 to 1? I mean, is there any way that can possibly win a Gold Cup? I think if it started now, it might win.
Right, there you go. Fighting talk from Andy. On to the second question now, and it's time for the festival Trixies. What would the win Trixie look like for the festival as it stands today, Ed?
Well, I've got a little bit adventurous. Obviously, we've gone each way.
Okay.
Well, I've put some big prices in.
After all.
You can do it, win if you want. Yeah, I've got one shorty in here. Jerry Colomb for the Brown Advisory. I was going through this race. I think it'll be a 5-runner race, and he's 3 to 1, and I think he'll start about 11 to 8. And if Sir Gerhard swerves the race and goes the another route, it could be a 4-runner race. I don't think he's going to have a whole lot to beat. It's going to be him against Time Hill in a match, and I'm not totally bought on Time Hill. Anyway, Jerry Colomb, leg 1. And then we are rolling the dice with the big ones. A familiar friend from last year is back, and I think has got even better claims 12 months around, and that is Cam Prond to win the Coral Cup, who was 4th in it last year, if you remember rightly. This is a horse who must have good ground, and you'll remember, we all remember it very well. The Wednesday of last year's Cheltenham Festival, the Amazonian rains arrived. It turned into absolute carnage, and I think he still ran an absolute stormer to finish 4th there. He did that off 140. He then went over to Punchestown and got his just reward, shall we say, bolted up there in Punchestown on good ground. This season's been a bit of a mess over fences, didn't take to them. He's had a couple of spins over hurdles, I'm sure, with a sight to this. Well, those green and gold connections have got him in here £2 lower than last year off 138. He's £2 lower than we placed in it last year when the ground went totally against him. I think he's a stone better horse on good ground. And I think he's 25 to 1 or there or thereabouts, or 20s non-runner no bet. There is obviously the chance they could go the conditional route if they wanted to, but I'd be shocked given how well he ran in this last year. So Cam Prond is leg 2 in the Coral Cup there, George. And then on to leg 3 is the one I was talking about. It'd be bittersweet if Andy's bubble doobie does hack up, because I think Pembroke 14 to 1 in the County Hurdle is still absolutely cracker's price. I think he could start about 9 to 2, 4 to 1 favourite. I'm struggling to find a horse ahead of him in the betting that will line up. And I was going through, I haven't got the grid in front of me now, but I was going through about 7 or 8 of them below him in the betting. I don't think will line up. Dan Skelton has all but named he will be running in this race. The Yard have a phenomenal record in the County Hurdle, don't they? They've won it 2 or 3 times, haven't they? Third time lucky was placed at West Cork. Third time lucky won it. West Cork went close in it. Didn't Mobasha win it? They had the other winner 4 or 5 years ago as well. It's almost the one race they target all year. Pembroke 14 to 1. His price is starting to contract. I've backed him a little bit bigger. I think there's still loads of mileage in that price, because I'd be shocked if he wasn't at least half that price on the day.
There you go. So that Trixie best price with Boyle Sports. Jerry Colomb is 9 to 4, Campron 16 to 1, Pembroke 14 to 1, 825 to 1. The treble. That's Ed's Trixie. Andy?
Yeah, good picks there by Ed. Love Jerry Colomb. Really impressive the other day. Didn't fancy his chances at Sandown. Thought the ground was too quick for him. Thought the trip might be too short for him. And he beat 2 real good markers who'd run well against the Will Wacker, Monmoral and particularly Thunder Rock. I thought Thunder Rock ran his race. Monmoral didn't. So he's got to be a very, very good horse, Jerry Colomb. Absolutely adore him. And great pick by Pembroke as well. I think there's plenty of sense behind that. My 3 are 2 from the Dublin Racing Festival based on their times. The first one is Elek Tomp, who runs in the Supreme Novices. I think 9 to 2 for him is probably one of the each-way steals of the meeting or the betting currently at the moment. I can't not see him running well. I'm still surprised that Facile Vega's ahead of him in the market, and so he's almost certain to run. I think Willie Mullins will go Facile Vega and Elek Tomp in the Supreme, and I think he'll run Gallic Warrior and Impere Pass in the Ballymore. He's not going to run all 4 in that. I think he'll split it 2 in one and 2 in the other. So I think he's good value at 9 to 2. I'm still surprised that El Fabiolo isn't favourite for the Arkle. He should be on that Irish Arkle form, and I think he would have beaten John Bunn last year at Aintree. He got badly hampered. There was a horse that fell in front of him, wasn't there? I think 3 out. He's a bit ignorant to his fence. I think John Bond's a more secure chaser, or he's got a better technique than El Fabiolo. But I think El Fabiolo's got a better engine. And I think if he jumps a clear round in the Arc, and that is the big if, then he'll probably have too much for John Bond coming up the hill. But it's going to be a fascinating class either way. But I do think 2 to 1 still available for El Fabiolo is a good value. And I'm going to have to stick with Impervious. She's been my pick all year for the Mares Chase. And again, she isn't favoured in some firms, and she should be, because I think she's got a better bodywork than Allegory Devassi. So I've got no reason to desert Impervious. So there's my 3. Impervious for the Mare's Chase, Il Ete Tomp for the Supreme, and El Fabiolo for the Arkle.
Ilete Tomp 9-2, El Fabiolo 15-8, Impervious is 7-4. Those are the best prices with Sky Bet. The treble coming to a slightly shorter 42-1. Thank you both very much for sharing your tips, thoughts, insight with us. Loads in there today. Hopefully some winners in there too and some value. As I say, do check out the Racing Weekly Live with Rishi, Persad and Sam Turner on Monday the 6th of March. £10 a ticket with a pint at the George Pub in Chiswick in London. So do go and check that out. We'll put the link in the description here. Do download the oddschecker app where you can find the best prices, bookie offers, free bets and Andy's tips straight to the app every single morning of racing. And we also do check out the Cheltenham Super Service as well. Which is a specific chat around at the moment the festival, the Cheltenham Festival, bonus video content there. We're about to record a preview of the Mare's Chase and the Mare's Hurdle. So do sign up for the Super Service if you want to hear the guys' thoughts on that. In the meantime, enjoy the racing. I hope Ed has a great time at Warwick. We'll speak to Andy again next week as well. And please do ensure that you're gambling responsibly.